Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public board meeting of the Board of Education for Campbell River School District for this October 21st, 2025. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging that School District 72 operates throughout a large geographic area. Our schools here in Campbell River and on Quadra Island are located on the territories of the Liquido Nations, the Weewakai and Weewakam. We also encompass the territories of the Klahoose on Cortez, the Homolko First Nations, and the Comox Nations in Sayward. Please know that there is a short production delay between the live event that you are viewing and the meeting participants, and the question and answer function is open online for questions on agenda items throughout this meeting. A final call for questions will be made after the last agenda item, and the questions will be addressed at the end of the session. I would like to call this meeting to order and begin with chairperson's remarks. So lately, I've been thinking a lot about the word legacy and what it truly means in this governance context. Legacy isn't about the things we own or even the projects we complete. It's about what we leave behind in people, in the relationships we build, the trust we nurture, and the culture we create together. Our legacy as a governance team is not measured only by the policies we pass or the budgets we balance, but by the learning environment we shape and the respect we show for one another's voices. It's found in the small, steady ways we listen, support, and grow together. It's in the curiosity we model, the collaboration we foster, and the compassion we show. Because when adults keep learning, children see what's possible. As a board, we often talk about student learning as our shared purpose, but it is also our shared responsibility. The work of the public education does not belong to any one classroom, department, or person. It belongs to all of us. Trustees, staff, families, governments, and community partners, each playing a role in creating the conditions where learning can truly thrive. Every time we gather, we grow as learners. The recent Vista event reminded us of that truth. It was more than professional learning. It was a celebration of connection and shared purpose. We listened, we questioned, we reflected. And in doing so, we were reminded that when we come together with open minds and humble hearts, extraordinary things can happen. We see new connections, fresh ideas, and renewed energy for the work we share. We also know that learning happens far beyond the walls of a classroom. It unfolds on playgrounds where cooperation and problem solving come to life, in forests where curiosity leads to discovery, and along the seashore where imagination meets science. It happens in community spaces, on playing fields, and in quiet moments of wonder. Learning is woven through every part of our children's worlds, each experience shaping confidence, connection, and understanding. When we honor and celebrate learning in all its forms and places, we expand our view of what education can be. By recognizing that growth happens wherever curiosity lives, we model the same openness and wonder we hope to inspire in every learner. As we look ahead to this, our final year in our term of office, we can take pride in what we have accomplished together. The decisions made with care, the challenges faced with courage, and the progress built through collaboration and trust. Together, we have strengthened relationships, deepened understanding, and advocated for a culture that values learning in all its forms. But there is still work to do. We must continue to bring forward diverse ideas, experiences, and cultural truths, melding them into something stronger than any one of us could create alone. We must keep redefining education as a space where every voice belongs, where barriers, both real and perceived, are dismantled, and where every child feels seen, supported, and free to grow into their best self. And when we do that, when we learn together, lead together, and believe together, we build something that endures. This, I believe, is our legacy. A local public education system that commits to humbly listening, courageously learning, flexibly adjusting, and continuing to move forward toward our shared goal of creating educational spaces where every child's unique gifts are seen, supported, and celebrated. Because truly, they deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Sure, right on.
Well, I'll leave that to Jen. That's a Jen thing. On to superintendent's remarks.
Thank you, Chair Eddie, and you know, you phrased everything so wonderfully in terms of a legacy. I think tonight I'd like to phrase everything in terms of Thanksgiving, and I know we just had Thanksgiving last week, and many times we have an opportunity to sit around the table and say what we're thankful for. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time and say what I'm thankful for here in School District 72. I know as we progress through the school year, we have challenges to overcome, but we also have things that we look forward to. And this month upcoming before our next board meeting, we have lots to look forward to and lots to be thankful for. I know Friday we have Pro D Day. It's a provincial Pro D Day, and there's lots of Pro D activities happening in the district. And I don't know if trustees were aware of this or not, but Rob Ron is actually hosting an unconference, they're calling it, a Pro D event at Rob Ron to celebrate what it's like to be an alternate school. And I think there's some great activities happening there. We have a wonderful core Pro D committee and a wonderful Pro D focus here in the school district. And I just wanted to point out that School District 72 currently has a book club that offers many more books than this, but some of the books they're offering for teachers to take part in and be part of a book club is The Anxious Generation, The Identity Trap, Messy Math, Fluency in Mathematics, This Place is Who We Are. And that the one, This Place is Who We Are, will also be a focus of our Indigenous Day in January. And it features some local people and some beautiful stories and beautiful photos as well. I'm also thankful for our partnership with NIC, and I know Chair Eddie and Secretary Treasurer Patrick and I were able to go to a 50th anniversary celebration with NIC this afternoon, and it's great to have them as a community partner, and we really enjoy the community partnership that Timberline shares with them as well. Something to look forward to that's coming up very quickly, Remembrance Day on November 10th. All of our schools will be participating in Remembrance Day services and activities. Hopefully the trustees will be able to get an opportunity to visit a school on that day. And of course, on the 11th, there'll be activities here in the local community. And lastly, I just would like to say how thankful I am for the board. I know that you're looking at your last year potentially of service in the face, and I just want to acknowledge the wonderful job that you've done and how welcomed you made me feel as a superintendent, but more importantly, how you really put your heart where it matters the most, and that's in educational initiatives right here in School District 72. So just wanted to thank you for that, and I think it's important for us to take some time every now and then to be able to express what we're thankful for. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Manning. And we're thankful for you. For Box Valley. Approval of the minutes of September 23rd, 2025. So moved by Trustee Gladish and seconded by Trustee Briggs. All those in favor? Okay. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. Is there any additions or alterations to the agenda? No. The motion to approve the agenda is that the agenda is hereby approved as circulated. So moved by Trustee Gillis, seconded by Trustee Harper. All those in favor? Excellent. And report of board decisions of October 21st, 25 confidential.
Yes, we dealt with teaching, administrative and support staff changes and property, legal and financial issues.
Thank you, Vice Chair Gillis. No correspondence or public or agenda submissions. On to educational submissions. And I'd like to welcome the Director of Operations, Jason Decksheimer, up for his presentation, please, on operations and maintenance work updates.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and
Evening.
be with you for about 15 minutes. I'm gonna give an update on all things operations, work we've been working on throughout the summer. I know on our minor capital projects, our MG projects, and then a bit of a peek ahead into what's coming for us this winter. So starting with our minor capital, these are projects funded from the Ministry of Infrastructure now.
You can slow, I bet. You don't have to, I don't have to mention it too much. She was kind of joking. You can
Over 17. First and foremost, any facilities manager in the world will tell you the most important asset you want to take care of is your roofs.
Mm.
And so we did get two roofing projects funded this year. One was over in Cortez, obviously some challenges getting over there and boating materials over and barging things. But we replaced the roofs on all three outbuildings at Cortez. And for those of you that aren't aware, the building on the right there on the upper picture is where they host the Cortez Academy. And the other two buildings are a shop or sort of a maker space and we use in the storage building at the end there. And the other one is replacing the roof gutter at Ocean Grove. This project is sort of still in the last stages of wrapping up. So we've been working with the school to try and work around that. But this piece on the right-hand picture, basically we're replacing the entire gutter of the school. This is what it looked like beforehand, which you can, if you're wondering why replacing a gutter system costs $200,000 plus, that's why, and it goes around the entire building. Robron is getting a fairly major HVAC upgrade. We're in the process, and this project isn't quite done. It's going to wrap up in by the end of November. We're replacing, basically upgrading the HVAC, the heating, and that ventilation system and cooling actually to about 20-25% of the building. This was a bit of a surprise that we were funding for this program. It does add air conditioning capacity because the project essentially is adding rooftop air source heat pumps, around 13 of them, similar to what you would see in schools, to a number of areas of the school. So this is actually the south side of the school. So it's the administrative offices, our IT offices, being all the inclusive ed area. And then also importantly, this room is where we host many events in the district, including recently the conference. And it's the conference room, which is an important one to have the AC in. All of these areas do have some 12-month use. And of course, we see the highest heating load in July and August. So getting some AC in this building is nice to have. So it will be in place for next summer. The other and last minor capital project we did have less this year funded than typical. And this one's an interesting one because this is stuff that no one ever sees.
I've never seen that.
So the principal likely has never been in this room even, and even our staff, our electricians, don't ever touch this high voltage equipment. You really need some specialized training. But this picture here is basically the three-phase step-down transformer that essentially controls the power distribution in the entire building. That's the old one. That's what the new one looks like. That's about $300,000 in infrastructure. It all sits behind one of these panels in here. Again, something no one ever sees, but the consequence of this failing without pre-planning is pretty catastrophic to us operating that building successfully, because we were actually with that equipment about 6 months ahead of when it had to be installed. That's how long it takes. There's only about 2 companies on Vancouver Island that can kind of touch this stuff. So this is the one you want to replace the day before it fails, not the 6 months after. And then on to some other special projects. So the Cortez wetland, we got a large SRD grant or grant coordinated through the SRD this year, the tune of $305,000 to basically rehabilitate the wetland that was previous there at the Cortez Island School when it was developed. This achieves a couple things. One, it rehabilitates the site and all the natural benefits that wetlands provide. And we do have some others in the district, including the one at Quadra, which is mimicked work. But we've also have a lot of drainage issues at that school. And in the winter, that field is pretty mucky. It's not the nicest field to play on, not to the standard of our in-town field. So we're hoping over the winter this can help with the drainage issues they have at that field. And of course, it's looking like a bit of a dry land, but believe it or not, that is, again, another $300,000 project worth of infrastructure work. But underneath all of this sort of biomass, there's a very engineered structure. It's a large membrane basically that holds the water to have sort of the shallow pool, which creates that wetland structure. So we're going to be monitoring over this winter. We're working with consultant wilding and hoping to see that look a little bit different this time next year. Onto some of our AFG projects. Big important one for us, as the board is likely aware, we are a couple of years into a major accessibility initiative in our district. A working group of some of our senior staff have now audited all of our school sites, including every school, and came up with long lists of needed improvements at each site. And that can be things that relate to parking, handicap openers at doors, I mean entrance doors. It can be handicap improvements to handicap washrooms, door widths, you name it. If it impacts accessibility, we sort of took a look at it. And there's a couple things I'll mention. There are at least 200 work orders generated out of those audits. So it's going to take us likely years to, one, get the funding to accomplish all of them, and to have the capacity to achieve all of them. We also had 30 AFG requests come in from the schools specifically, and if the board can recall, our AFG funding, we get about 1.8 million a year. At least that's what we got this year, and we allocate about a third of that to school priority requests. And so out of those requests, we had 30 in the last time we reached out to schools. 30 of those requests, the schools are now prioritizing these because they're important to them. Two that we made progress on this summer, our paint department was working hard to ensure that we had appropriate number of and the right size and designed accessible parking spaces at both our public parking lots and our staff parking lots. And while I'm on the topic, our paint department actually repainted our lines at all of our schools this year. Almost every line, like 95% of the lines in our parking lot were repainted this summer, and on our playground. So when kids came back to school this September, hopefully less arguments, four square, of course. The lines again. So we've still got a couple of those left. EDM is getting some repaving right now. Like I think next week, and so we still need to redo some of those. The other one I'll mention is since we've started the accessibility initiative, we've added about 15 to 20 automatic door openers throughout the district. So all of our front doors now, and main front doors, the same door that anyone without any mobility issues would use, now all have automatic openers. Other AFG projects. This is kind of an interesting one. This is just wrapping up right now. Those of you familiar with Rob Ron may not have been in this space before, but this is in the shop wing. The picture on the left is the old wood shop at Rob Ron. This has been a lease space for a number of years. And we had our commercial tenant vacated at the end of August. So we are now transforming the space to be used primarily for the short term for the Rob Ron physical ed requirements. Rob Ron's been impacted and been graciously hosting some of the Kerry High PE programs since. So we've sort of converted this space and given it basically a refresh. Lots of more natural light.
Good,
Yeah. So we're hoping to have this ready. This picture was actually, this afternoon. So we're hoping to have this ready in the next week or so for Rob Ron students. Gym floor refinishing. These pictures are both from Timberline. We had a professional firm in to do this floor this year, so they bring it down to surface, sand it, and then repaint all the lines. And one thing that we are hearing from PE teachers that they like to see is the stained keys, so that helps them with keeping track of where you are in the game. And I got some good feedback on this one from my son plays basketball in this gym a lot, and he said the gym when they got back was so sticky they were kind of falling over, which was a good thing apparently. And then we did some minor refinishing at some of our elementary schools too. We do that with our in-house staff, custodial team, and our paint department. We do those ones, and we did those at Sandown, Cedar, and EDM, and included some of the stage work. Energy efficiency. So I believe this fall we've been working with an energy management company to help advance our energy efficiency initiatives. So we are going to have a presentation specifically on this. But a couple things I'll mention that we worked on this summer. BC Hydro continuous optimization project. We applied for this for 6 schools. And what this is, continuous optimization is essentially recommissioning of the physical plant, the systems. So primarily controls that control our heating, our lighting, and some other things. And it's essentially getting back to the original design. So our buildings are complex. As we do these projects over the years, or make changes to controls or staff change, often what can happen is your building can get out of alignment, out of whack. And you have fans that run all night, or we have building setbacks that aren't properly set. And so we have spent a lot of time through this program and subsequently upgrading a lot of our building controls. And we're already starting to see the improvements from that. We are planning the second phase of this continuous optimization program in the coming 1 to 2 years, and there's still another 8 schools that we need to do. We replaced about $200,000 in windows at Georgia Park this summer. Single pane aluminum windows, also pumps efficiency. We'll talk about this when we come back with our energy management company, but we are starting to look at lighting controls. And what this would look like is when we go to do an LED conversion at a school, we have very few LEDs inside our schools. But when we go to do these next phases, it means that we're going to gain the ability to control lighting in the classroom, which is obviously has a benefit to students and class and teachers, especially those that may be sensitive to light, mood levels, and you can imagine. And then last but not least on this page, we now have 4 electric vehicles in our school district fleet. We have 2 electric buses. And we now have 2 courier vehicles. Our previous gas-powered courier delivery vehicle kicked the bucket this summer, spitting out a lot of white smoke. And it can never spit out any smoke again because it's now electric for transit. We had some surplus electric bus fund we were able to use to fund that. And last but not least, this summer, I'd be remiss without mentioning our very strong custodial team who go through all of our schools. They clean over 800,000 square feet in the summer. They pull everything out of every class and scrub down all the surfaces to make sure when September comes around, all of our schools are bright and shiny and welcoming places. And before I move on to what's coming next, I'm skipping over dozens and dozens of minor, smaller projects that all of our trades departments take on in the summer. And I could have 10 more slides, if not more. So moving on to what's upcoming this winter. We are finally, after a slight year delay of dealing with other priority issues in the district, which will remain unnamed, get to our washroom modernization program. So we have now engaged with an architect. We've signed a contract with Studio Hub Architecture, which is the same architecture firm that we worked with to draft our long-range facilities plan. They're very familiar with their district, and they're experts in the field of washroom design in the K-12 sector in BC. There's 5 sites we are going to advance to tender-ready, shovel-ready design in 2026 before next summer. Those are at both middle schools, both high schools, and at Rongrong. And we're intending to proceed to construction on at least one of those. So we have earmarked some funding in our AFG budget for next summer. That's next year's AFG budget for one site. Tentatively, that is going to be the main washrooms at Timberline. And as of course, as the board can recall, we did apply for minor capital funding from the ministry for 2 more sites, which I believe was Kerry High and Rob as well. So if those 2 are approved, we could see about $1 million of washroom modernization work happening next summer, and we'll just get those 2 sites. And just as a reminder for everyone, we're talking about converting only 1 washroom at each of these sites. All the remainder of the washrooms would stay. Childcare phase 2, I won't go into too much detail about what this looks like, but we are at the stage now where we're ready to issue a tender for the first 2 of our phase 2 childcare sites, which are the ones at Penfield and Fuller Point. We're intending to have this tender out, I believe, tomorrow. And the tender for the remainder at the board office in Phoenix will be out a little bit later this fall. So it'll be something that is a priority for us this coming year. We're expecting construction through 2026 for those 4 sites. And then last but not least, I'll mention we are working on a shop safety initiative, and this has been a couple of years in the making. We started with a safety audit through a third-party consultant last year in November, and identified some areas that we needed to work on to improve to make sure that our shops and our labs are safe for students, or safer for students. And so that's a wide variety of things. That may be just simple tidying. That may be installing guards on things like blades. And it may be making sure that our ventilation systems are working correctly and that they're to a modern design and a safe design. So we've started some mechanical assessments this fall. We're bringing a specialist dust extraction company in, I think next week actually. And then we're working on with the shop teachers in the schools on more inspections and making sure things are nice and clean and safe for students going forward. So that's my very brief and yet extensive update, and happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
This is only a fraction of the stuff that he does. What I've been impressed with is his engagement with schools. He mentioned 1/3 of AFG now goes to schools, and that comes because Jason's out talking to principals, asking him what, he could easily just sit back at the maintenance and just listen to what all the trades want to do, which is all of very good, high value. But the incorporation of school wishes and making those priorities has been something that he has been key in changing in our school district, so.
Right. Just a quick question, Jason. So it's great that we apply through the ministry for our AFG and our smaller capital things, but is there federal funding for accessibility that school districts can apply for?
Yeah, good question. Typically what we see with the grants that we see for those types of projects, oftentimes we're exempt.
Right.
School education sector is exempt, or public sector levels of government are exempt. Or oftentimes they're for very small specific projects.
Right.
And so we'll keep obviously we always keep our eye on any opportunities, and if there's something we see fit, but oftentimes that's what we see is either we're exempt or it's for something very specific and not in the range that would see us see these big sort of modernization type projects advance. So just interesting. We have had some donations, I believe, in the last 3 or 4 months. I went for some accessibility work, and we put that money to good use. So I certainly take any dollar that we can. Yeah.
A thought I had as I was watching that photo of Phoenix and being there 30 years ago, and a young man that sold me my insurance locally, who was mobile challenged. At the time he attended Phoenix, it was a difficult experience because it was a 2-level school and there was no elevator in those days. And then because of him and other students to follow, an elevator was created. And so it's so wonderful to see such a proactive lens through the whole district to recognize that we don't have to wait until there's a student. We need to anticipate there's going to be a student that will benefit from easier accessibility. So thank you.
Yeah, and Jason was at just about every accessibility audit that we had. He walked around with us and noted the changes and the requests. So that was very helpful too.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter, some of our sites are, you can't change an elevation of a school, but there are ways to work within the site, and it's important. And engaging with the principals and understanding how they use the school is important too, because if we install an automatic door opener on a door that makes logical sense but is locked,
Right.
defeats the purpose. So there's things like that.
Yeah.
When you walk through, you can capture some of those messages, right?
Yeah. Well, amazing.
Any further questions or comments? Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for all the work you do. Yes.
Thanks to your staff, because I see them all summer cleaning schools. and
They are the ones that do the actual real work.
By the way, at Timberline, no student goes into that gym without running shoes. So how do you deal with that? Well, the staff have running shoes for every student, and they find running shoes before they go into the gym. It's beautiful.
On to electorate and board matters, and conveniently, the next topic is the joint statement on inclusive, safe and caring schools.
Yeah, if trustees want to look at Exhibit 12A, that's the joint letter that was signed by the board, myself, the president of the CRPVPA, the president of the CRDTA, and the president of CUPE. Just wanted to note to the board that there's been a slight change in phraseology. So in the first paragraph, where it says we want to affirm our commitment to creating safe, caring, and inclusive learning environments for all students, staff, families, and community members. That is in alignment with Ministry of Education wording now. That is the official ministry stance on inclusivity in terms of the phraseology they'd like to see used. So we just followed suit with that, but everything in the letter, the spirit of the letter, follows true from what we had in previous years, wanting to ensure we have safe, caring, inclusive spaces for all of our learners and all of our staff.
Thank you. And Superintendent Manning, onto the framework for enhancing student learning, or the FESL report.
Fine. Okay, here we go. So FESL stands for Framework for Enhancing Student Learning. It is now also referred to the Enhancing Student Learning Report, or ESLR. And this is an annual report that every single school district is required to give in response to data that we receive that looks at FSA results, the Student Learning Survey, grade 10 numeracy and literacy assessments, as well as transition rates and graduation rates. And then we summarize all of that data. And then there's a second part of the document that is district response. So it's a lot of pages and a lot of information. I've winnowed it down to, about 12 slides or so, and just wanted to take you through it. Okay, so we're going to start with our literacy results. And I apologize that it's a little bit small, but we'll talk about this. So what you see in front of you are the grade 4 FSA literacy results and the grade 7 FSA literacy results. They're broken into 6 different categories. The first category is all students. The next category is Indigenous students, then Indigenous students on reserve, Indigenous students off reserve, children and youth in care, and students that have a designation. Where you see no results, it's because the sample size was too small and they masked the results. So they typically mask the results for anything under 10 students. They won't show that because there's a possibility that that student could be identified. So what I wanted to point out to you is the downward trend, especially in grade 4. If we focus on all students, you see that that's a straight downward trend for us. And then when we move over to grade 7, slightly improved downward trend, but still a downward trend. I'm going to get to some reasons why we think this is occurring as we progress through it, but that's kind of the data as it stands. Numeracy results, similar, a little bit better actually, but similar. So in numeracy, we have a downward trend and then a slight uptick for all students. It is interesting in grade 7, we have that same pattern happening, but a little bit more of an uptick. And then we look at this group of students, and the yellow dots are provincial averages. So that's the provincial average at those grade levels. So we are exceeding the provincial average for Indigenous students. However, it's still a pretty low percentage rate. So what did we do about all this? Oh, sorry, first we're just looking at the raw data. So we moved to grade 10 literacy and numeracy results. You see, similar trend, a little bit better results, but still for all students below the provincial average. For Indigenous students, we are either at or above the provincial average for the last, for this past year, and then every other year in between. Then the grade 10 numeracy assessment on the side, you see pretty far below provincial results. But once again, for Indigenous students, we're at or above the provincial average. So that's interesting for us to look at. Why is that happening? So we're asked to analyze the data and then interpret the data. So an analysis of the literacy shows that we have really high participation rates. Between 93 and 95% of our students take the FSA assessments, but the grade 4 results showed a steady decline in the last 3 years. Grade 7 results are slightly better and have demonstrated improvements since the 2021-22 school year. And the grade 10 literacy rates have improved since 2021 with Indigenous rates above the provincial average. Numeracy, same high participation rate, slight improvement again in the last 3 years, but a significant drop from the levels of 5 years ago. Indigenous grade 7 students are above the provincial average. And the numeracy rates show the same thing, and they've improved since 2021. And the Indigenous rates are at or above the provincial average. So we look at all this, and that's just a kind of a raw interpretation of what the data shows us. So, or a raw analysis of it. If we start to interpret it for literacy, we actually started thinking about this, and we began to wonder, is the high participation rate, especially in FSAs, grade 4 and 7, is that actually garnering lower assessment scores? Because are we making or having every student participate, even those students who it's not appropriate to have take the test, or we know will not be able to achieve on a standard assessment like this? So this year we've asked our schools to look at those exemptions, and they've never had exemptions before, based on the criteria that the ministry allows, whether they have an IEP that demonstrates they are not able to perform the assessment, or if they have an IEP and they are able, that they get the supports necessary to do the assessment. Sometimes in a written assessment, a student might need a scribe to be able to write what they're saying about the story they just read, to demonstrate their understanding. We're also putting a stronger focus on preparation, and as I mentioned, a stronger focus on providing supports. And we noticed that our FSA scores don't correlate with our local data. So we do a lot of local literacy screening that shows some really positive results, and the FSA results were not in correlation with that or exhibiting the same results. So we wanted to take a closer look at that and say, maybe there's some things we could be doing a little bit differently. So I'm really, really curious. The FSA is happening right now in our schools. I'm very curious to see what the results are going to look like. We mark those end of November, submit our results, and should get those by December. So we'll share those with the board when we get them. Numeracy interpretation. Because of the declining numeracy scores, it led to creating the lead teacher position that we now have. It also led to the development of a district numeracy framework that includes a common formative numeracy assessment. The board heard about that at the last board meeting. Just talked to Stephen, our director of instruction, Stephen Hawkins-Vogel, and Jessica McConnell, who's been working as our lead teacher. And she is saying there's really positive results coming in from schools, of many schools jumping on the assessment and wanting to do it. We made it this year optional, but we emphasized it would be a really great idea for you to get on board with this, and because it will be made mandatory next school year. But it seems like we have a really great uptick on that, and people are filling those out, and we're starting to get data in now about what that looks like. And getting improvements, because teachers are giving suggestions to our lead teacher about the tool that we're using to show the data, and maybe some improvements that could be made, and she's taking those. She just sent an email out to the field today with 5 or 6 different improvements that could be had with that assessment. So it's kind of a working document, which we're really pleased about too. So another part of the framework for enhancing student learning is human and social emotional development. So this question is asked on our student learning surveys. Do students feel welcome? And it's done at grades 4, 7, and 10. There you see our results for, once again, all students, Indigenous students. That's all Indigenous students, then Indigenous students on reserve, off reserve, children and youth in care, and students with designations. You can see that, we're scoring pretty good with our Indigenous population, and we're at or above the provincial average on most of those metrics. We move to a sense of belonging, and this is always interesting to me, because feeling welcome, safe, and caring environment seems to be a little different than feeling a true sense of belonging. What I do like about this, with all students, we're a little bit below the provincial average, but once again, with our Indigenous students, we're at or above our provincial average for a sense of belonging. And that's the whole population. This is broken down into on reserve, off reserve. So those are interesting statistics to look at. And then the last one in this category is Do students feel they have 2 or more adults that care about them? And once again, it's done at grade 4, grade 7, grade 10. When you analyze these results, it's very interesting. At grade 4, you get a strong correlation with kids feeling, yeah, I've got lots of adults that care about me. As you go through the years 7 and 10, it's just a steady decline. And then the ministry takes that information and gives you an average figure for that. Okay, on to the grad rate. I don't know if you guys remember last year when we shared this information, it was very discouraging because we dropped our grad rate in some populations significantly. And we talked about this one last year with our Indigenous resident students, and we talked about why we figured we knew the answer to that problem. And a lot of it had to do with 2 factors. It's migration out of district. We had a fairly large number of students that migrated out of the school district, and they counted as non-graduates in our system because they left us before they graduated. And the other factor in that was we had a higher number than usual that opted to do a 6-year rate. This is the 5-year completion rate, so it doesn't count those kids that would have been graduating this year under the 6-year rate. You see that we had a dramatic improvement in the most recent results. For all students, we bounced up by 8%. Indigenous students bounced up by 12%. And that really mirrored that migration pattern. So we were very happy last year with the results that we received in the blue for all of our populations. You can see are significantly higher than they were in the previous year. With students with designations jumping up by 26%. So that was really happy about that. Want to continue that trend. That was the 5-year rate with dogwood and adult dogwood combined. Same trend happening here. Percentages like just 2 percentage points lower, but same trend where we see this past year. An improvement over the rates previously. So we're hoping that that trend continues on. We think we have a lot of things in place that I'm going to talk about shortly that helps with those numbers. So that was part 1, just analyzing all the information and the data. Part 2 is, what is our response as a district to this? And we've complete a separate package that includes a whole bunch of information that gets sent off to the ministry, and they analyze that, and then they have a follow-up call with us based on this, and they give us a kind of a FESL report card that tells us how they think we're doing on all these measures. So our response includes the district strategic plan, which gets sent to them via a link, so they can look over what the board plan is and how it correlates to the data that they're seeing. Every school student achievement plan, it's posted on every school's website. If you go on each school's website about our schools, you click on that, you'll see the student achievement plan. So if you were interested, you could look at that. Every single student achievement plan for all of our schools is also sent to the ministry so they can look at those. That was one of the things that we got downgraded on last year because the ministry was saying, we can't find your student achievement plans. All of our schools had them, but they weren't posted on the website. So we made that change this year and sent a link to the ministry for all the plans anyway, so they didn't have to go hunting for those. One of the sections that we're required to respond to is called ongoing engagement in support of student learning. And they ask that question in terms of what are you doing within your district and with your community to support student learning. So I've just listed a bunch of responses without going into detailed explanation about what each of them means. But, we have the IEC and knowledge keepers and cultural mentors that work. We have student voice committees in our schools. We use the grandmother's perspective and connection tool to help connect with kids that identifies kids at a very early age, right in kindergarten, if they are falling through the cracks. And we have the school-based team works with that tool, and the school administrators and support staff work with that tool to address any students that seem to be emerging or developing. We're trying to move them to proficient and extending. We work with DPAC. All of you guys are informed on what we do. We have a number of district framework committees. We have the numeracy and literacy frameworks, mental health framework development. We're working right now with Children's Hospital on that. And we have a youth action committee as well through our inclusive ed department. And then we were also asked to complete what's called a reflect and adjustment chart. So you'll see that what is highlighted is each of the strategic priorities that you guys have created. And underneath them is just a one bullet point out of a big chart that you can look at. Our document is posted on our website if you ever want to check it out. That's where you'll find all the deep dive information. So for the first strategic priority, honoring Indigenous worldviews and perspectives, the goal is equitable education outcomes for Indigenous students across all of our measures. Student-centered learning environments is kind of an inclusive goal this year, that students feel safe, welcome, connected by prioritization of personal wellness. And there's a lot more that I couldn't put in there, but it's on the chart. And evolving for tomorrow is we're really focusing to grade level proficiency in literacy and numeracy. And so this is just meant to be kind of a quick hit on what our report that we submitted looks like. If you want to see the full report, please visit our website. It's there. And just wondering if there are any questions about that.
We talked about last year if we were gonna be able to break it down into male, female, do you have a better idea?
In terms of like all the data or just certain pieces of the data, the ministry does not offer that at this time. It's, they have their categories. What we do have more in terms of an inclusive, we do have the MDI, the EDI, it's a middle years development instrument. It asks a lot of questions that are similar to the student learning survey. Although it doesn't mesh with the student learning survey, I think we can get male, female information from that, but I can check into that.
Interesting.
Just thinking about the sort of discrepancy between the FSA results and the local data. Because the local data is use DIBELS for that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm wondering if there's some need to consider the use of DIBELS as a tool when we know that the Ministry of Education is coming up with its own literacy tool. Might we consider something like that so that maybe it's more, I don't know, more aligned or whatever? I mean, I don't know how many other districts use DIBELS, and I don't know if that's the best representation of the achievement of our students.
I know that the ministry has approved DIBELS as one of the screeners.
Okay, so it has-
We talked to the ministry about what our screeners look like. We're actually ahead of the game on that because we screen students right now from K all the way through 5 on a literacy screen, and the ministry has made mandatory K screening for this year. And we went to them and said, hey, we have DIBELS. They said, that's great. That's one of our approved resources. They want a province-wide resource that everybody uses the same one. I'm sure it would help them for collating data. That would be, you're comparing apples to apples then. We don't know yet if it's going to be DIBELS or it's going to be something else, but the ministry is working on that and we'll be announcing that as the year progresses.
Well, I have a lot of confidence in the assessment ability of the people who are closest to the students, that is their teachers. And I'm just wondering if I'm trying to explore the discrepancy between FSA and local results and wondering how much or whether there is an ability for students prior to the FSA to be able to have some kind of, I don't know if you want to call it a practice, but at least to experience what the format looks like. Because I think sometimes if students are just faced with something for the first time, they're not as comfortable with, and I think comfort has a lot to do with it. I also wanted to say I looked through the grade 10 numeracy. And I found it very language based, like it wasn't what I had expected. I guess it's probably changed over time, but I thought, boy, you really have to be able to interpret what numeracy, I guess we're talking about number literacy, what people are kind of looking for, a lot of interpretive, graphs and anyway, it was a bit of a surprise to me because I hadn't looked at it for some time. And so I guess I'm sounding very defensive of our own teachers, but I do feel that people understand the I guess the achievement levels of their students. And I'm wondering if they are surprised when they see these results as not as reflective as they would feel they are of students' actual abilities.
Yeah, I'll quickly answer your first question.
Yeah.
Because the ministry actually does provide sample tests for students to take just so they can get used to the format. Yeah, so we encourage that.
And
we are encouraging it this year.
We're
encouraging that this
year. Good, thank you.
What does FNESC think of those results? And FNESC is really driving the bus.
Yes, FNESC loves those results, not the results. They love the data and they want to see the results improve.
Well, no, but I'm seeing the data is doing this.
Yes.
For First Nation students, so.
It's
the FSA is not going away is what I'm saying. If that's what's happening with the FSA data, FNESC likes it. The FSA is not going away.
No, it's not, it's not anytime soon. And FNESC does want to see that data go up, but they want to see it matching the all student data.
Well, regrettably, what I'm seeing is that it's going to end up matching because the all student is doing this. Well, the First Nations only is doing this, so the matching is gonna come through. Meeting going up and down in the elevator.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we look at too. It's great to be at or above the provincial average, but not if that equals 42%.
So it just sort of leaves me wondering, what is it about the FSA or that, I don't want to say that it's working for First Nations, but how is it that it's being presented to First Nations students so that they are actually seemingly getting a positive experience out of it and demonstrating learning, whereas all students, that's not happening? That doesn't really make sense because they're all getting similar teaching.
And I think that would be different in all 60 districts, like everyone has their own data set.
Yeah. No, but I'm just talking about it in our district because it's they're common classrooms, so it doesn't make sense that the all students data is going down when the First Nations did well.
Yeah, well, it's something for us to explore for sure. So thank you.
Yeah. I still have one more question here. Just a comment about the FNESC and the FSA. Yeah, that's a very important source of data that they've relied on. It's probably one of the only ones that they have that gauges student achievement. So you mentioned about the grad rates. You mentioned the mainstream is 8% going up by 8 and 12 for Indigenous. Now, are you talking about percentage rates? Because I couldn't quite follow what you were saying there.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I was talking about like, I think it was at 50 and it went to 68. So we had a 50% percentage rate at the last set of data, which was 22-23. 23-24 jumped up to 68%. So it improved by
68 for.
I forget what I can look,
64, I think.
Okay.
64. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So yeah, that's a percentage rate difference.
Okay,
between the
and
years.
so compared to the provincial average, how are we looking in that regard? I didn't focus, there was so much there. I was thinking
Yeah,
about stuff
sorry.
as you plowed ahead.
I'm just trying to recall, I think for that, we're very close to the provincial average, but we might be still slightly below, but that's one of the benchmarks we're shooting at.
So just following up on Jan's question, the 64% included the adult dogwood. Whereas the Indigenous graduation rates actually only went up by about 8%, but an additional 4 while including the adult dogwood.
Yes.
And trustee, or I should say Chair Eddie, it's important to mention that in our efforts to monitor and kind of follow through the year, this is part of our board work plan. Yes, to have this wonderful kind of reporting back in a public forum, because I think it's important for everyone.
It is.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right. On to elected and board matters, item 12C, which is the Bill 19 School Act amendment. So I'm going to provide this over to Associate Superintendent Sismic, as he is all things childcare. But recently the Education Minister has brought to the floor legislative changes to the School Act regarding childcare sites on school district properties. And Associate Superintendent Sismic, what does it mean?
So the main piece is currently, there's a very small scope of childcare on school grounds operated by school districts, basically before and after school care. There's some ambiguity with the language around summer and spring break, winter care, day care. And there was differing opinions on whether it was allowed because the School Act mentioned school days, but it didn't define school days. The only definition was business days. So schools are open on business days, which are non-stat days. So it's been clarified. So school districts, they put forward a legislation. It still hasn't passed, but it expands the scope that school districts can do childcare. So school districts will be able to clearly operate childcare before and after school as regular, but on Pro-D days and over spring break, summer and winter holidays if they choose. And it also allows for the expansion to before school age care, so infant, toddler, and 3 to 5 year olds. And then it also ensures that school districts, it is a cost recovery program, that they can charge fees and claim all costs associated with operating childcare.
Including administrative costs.
Administrative costs, heating costs, everything.
Thank you.
Question. So it sounds like you're fairly certain with this cost recovery stuff in place that we are not going to lose any money on this.
No, we're like, right now, we are cost recovery. Now, I will also qualify that. Part of that cost recovery is there's been a provincial grant for the last 5 years to help offset the administration. It's our understanding that will continue for at least 1 more year. And speculation is beyond that, because as we know, childcare is high on the province and the country's priority, because that funding for the support for admin came federally. So we anticipate there to be some funding to support that. And if that funding's there, we will definitely be in a clear cost recovery model. But we have contingencies if we lose that money to ensure we will always be cost recovery.
Good to know. Thanks.
Mr. Gillis, did you have a comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Exciting news ahead as we continue the transition between the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Education and Childcare. On to educational issues, September 30th, 1701 enrollment update. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something very general, and then I'm gonna pass it over to Kevin for the fine details. But the good news is that we came in above our projections for the school year, which was a big relief for us. Wasn't a huge number, but it was significant enough to be very helpful, especially in light of our budget issues that we've been experiencing with rising benefit costs. So we're very pleased about that. And we have an overall improvement in enrollment, because we often talk about projected numbers versus actual numbers. Projected is just what we submit to the ministry, our best guess in February. Actual is what actually comes in, and we are actually growing slightly over last year's numbers. So we're excited about that. It's something we expected last year and it didn't happen. So it's nice to see it happening this year.
Could we see the happy dance you did? when you-
Yeah, we just, this week are in the process of clearing duplicate claims between school districts. I had worried that we would probably lose about 15 students, but I think it looks like we're gonna lose 3. So that would put us at about 56. Now there's other important things that I think are quite exciting for, Campbell River as a community that shows really, really well. The overall provincial enrollment is declining. You're seeing and hearing about major school districts that are declining significantly. One school district had a swing of about 1,200 students less than they expected in a year. And we are kind of in the reverse. So although we're at 56 students over our projections, we actually did make a really big mistake overestimating one school by 60 students. When you take that into account, the positive is that means that our 125 students moved to town over the past year, which really is not the experience of most other school districts. We're seeing a lot more grade 12s graduate than kindergartners coming in. And so this in-migration into our community was really, really positive. Again, what we expected previous years, it just wasn't happening. But we're fortunate that it did happen last year. And hopefully it continues in the future. So just, yeah, I wanted to point that out as a positive for our community and our school district.
Is there a certain area that's seen a big increase in numbers?
Cortez. No, so that the big thing that we're looking at is what can we kind of count on continuing into the future? The Cortez increase was really, I think, a connection that the principal was making with the community that convinced DL and homeschoolers to enroll in the school, but we can only expect that once. But when I looked compared last year, every single grade saw an increase of between 5 students and 19 students. Really, Ripple Rock is doing well, but yeah, we're having some elementary schools with significant declines, more sort of in the middle of Campbell River. But yeah, the Ripple Rock Quinsam area is doing well for growth. And yeah, we're gonna probably have to really think about some of the changing and shifts as far as facility capacity. So we thought we were gonna shrink and still stay okay, but it may not be that. So we'll have to reassess it.
Any further questions? On to business administration, which is the finance warrant dated number 3, dated September 30th, 2025. And I'm asking for a mover for a motion that it be accepted as presented. Trustee Gladish, seconded by Trustee Briggs. All those in favor? So moved. And on to committee reports. So 15A is a bit of an update on how the Vista conference went in October 3rd and 4th. And I'd like to start by commending the Vista planning team. You did a really, really great job with creating a very powerful program. We started with a presentation and keynote by Nat Radcliffe Pogue. And she spoke, she really had us think about what the definition of ableism was. And did we really understand what the term meant? And that we as an education system, by creating a label of a disabled child coming into our system, we're creating a pathway or a self-talk for that child that isn't true and isn't necessary. We're we're letting them feel less than. Instead of celebrating their individual gifts and unique talents, even though they're different than mainstream kids. It was a really powerful conversation. She left trustees with incredible resources. Really enjoyed Stephen Joyce's presentation on outdoor learning. I loved that he can take kids to the most extreme places without an ounce of fear, but put them in front of a room full of other of his colleagues, and he was vibrating, he was nervous, but he does this amazing work with kids and changes perspectives, gives them opportunities to experience nature in ways that we could only hope that we could have had when we were that age. And the conversation finally on Friday night was so powerful. My deepest gratitude to Chief Chris Roberts, to Shonda Care, and to our colleague Janice Gladish, for sharing so openly their experiences with education. I believe that Ann Tenning, our new Indigenous principal, did a phenomenal job moderating it. And the conversation was powerful, and it was beautiful to watch the learning happen amongst the presenters at the table as they humbly and honestly shared their opinions around education. It was super powerful. So thank you very much to the Vista Planning team. And I'd like to hand it over to them.
Well, I think maybe just do a round table of a couple of comments, and I'll just keep this very brief because I think you articulated that very well. I love the theme Journeys to Success, because really that's what we're about. When we look at our strategic plan, we are trying to create opportunities for every learner. And by hosting it at the Rob Ron Center, which was such a welcoming environment, the Truth and Reconciliation display that had been created by the students was just mind-boggling. And I want to share one little piece here, just because I think this was very, when you're bringing a group of people together, you're always concerned about the food. Okay, are people going to be well nourished? Are they going to meet around? And we had a lovely dinner by one of our local caterers. But we went to the Rob Ron students and we said, do you think you could provide the snacks for us? Well, did they provide the snacks? The apple crumble tarts were out of this world. The date squares, the lemon bars, the chocolate chip cookies, the food just kept coming. And I heard from their teacher that they were so excited. It was truly an adventure in learning. They had to create all their menu, and they had to follow their recipes, do their shopping, and then when they got their check, they're opening a bank account, and so that they can use that. And now apparently they're out for hire. So anyway, it was truly wonderful, and I'll leave it at that and turn things over now. Joyce.
Oh, well, I don't know if there's much more to say. I unfortunately was unwell, so I missed Natalie's presentation, which I was very, very sad about. And I understand she was going to send the slides. Did we get those slides?
Yeah.
Did you send them out to our? Oh,
Your mail.
You have it.
okay, that's
The
awesome.
link.
Anyway, I did manage to make the other pieces, and I think sometimes these things can become sort of I don't know, a little dry, a little more like housekeeping. And I think this was a testament to what the power of storytelling is, and people being personal about their experiences and their thoughts and their curiosities and so I think there's a tremendous amount of power in that. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that people brought that to our occasion. What do you think, Jan?
Yeah.
Just want to say too, Joyce provided us, she took meticulous notes and held our feet to the fire all the way along. So it was great. We would have conversations, but she would document, and then you said you were going to, in the nicest way.
Can you believe that?
I'm quite impressed. Trustee McMahon.
It's not my MO usually.
Yeah, what anybody else to say?
Do you have anything?
Oh, well, it was great. I really enjoyed it. And, I think that having Anne meet Sean and Chris was pretty amazing.
Mhm.
And I think it, shows us that, you know, we just have to ask people to come and be with us, and they will. And so there's a really good lesson for us here. Yeah. Thank you.
Any further comments?
It's really good to connect with the other trustees of Mount Island. We were doing registration, so it connected with all of them.
And two really friendly faces.
Yeah, good networking. But-
We did have a pretty high participation.
Mhm.
We had 70 people.
Yeah, that was pretty high for Vista.
The salmon was phenomenal.
The
Sounds good.
No. Well, actually, we just wanted to, as a group, we wanted to say that there were two people that were remarkably there for us all the way around. And unfortunately, we have to say, your gift is in the mail, which it truly is. It's in transit at some point, but Jennifer Patrick, Natalie Crawshaw, please take a bow, because you were there and you both did so much to help us set forward our best foot, helped us keep organized, put together our little bags of welcome, gave us all of the PR and I think the promo that we needed. And it was wonderful to see Jennifer there capturing moments, and to see Natalie there washing dishes at about 11 o'clock at night. That's what happens when you use real plates. They have to be washed for the next morning. But just know from all of us, and there is something coming your way when it actually
When
gets
the mail
here.
strikes over.
Yeah. So we want to give you a big round.
Thank you so much. Yeah, what a great event. On to committee reports, and I have Trustee McMahon to give us a committee report on the DPAD committee meeting.
Right, well, we, Associate Superintendent Sismic and myself attended the District Parents Advisory Committee meeting last week. And it was really the second meeting of the season, and the one in which the president and the secretary, no, the president and the treasurer were retiring, and so there were elections and new people coming on. I think they have, a real spark of energy and optimism about how they can kind of breathe some new life into. It's hard getting parents to come out after, a long day, and so I think they are coming on board with a lot of optimism and plans about what they want to do and how they might best support both participation and also support parents where they would like to have support and information and workshops and what have you. So yeah, they're just getting going.
I asked Trustee McMahon, I had seen something about white hat
Yeah,
IT for parents. Do you have more information on that, or am I throwing?
no, they've organized a white hat presentation for parents. It'll all be online, and they will make available, I believe, through Jennifer, link where parents can come on board, and they also are hoping to make it available to the schools. I think it's both high schools and middle schools.
Interesting.
Just to clarify, the White Hatter originated with an ex-police officer presenting to schools on internet safety. And, the son has now taken over, so, it's kind of it's a live, presentation to students and families, so, PAC is paid for, a presentation, I believe it's on the 23rd of October.
Yeah.
And the plan is, it's going to be via Zoom, and every parent will get emailed a link, and they can watch it at their own home, and it will be available for 48 hours after the initial presentation, and it's really to kind of stress the importance of some things for parents to watch out for as their kids navigate the online world, and some important pieces of information for students as they navigate that online world, because we're seeing an uptick of challenges with online interactions.
It's fascinating. Thanks to the PACs for recognizing that and bringing that to our community for parents. On to 15C, the Core Professional Development Committee meeting. Trustee
Okay.
Gladys.
All right, I have some scribbly notes here. So the allocation of additional Pro-D funds was announced to the members of the core Pro-D. Schools will receive up to 2 times their normal amount with the top up for small schools like Quadra. So I'll be really interested in knowing how that makes a difference overall for their ability to pursue some very meaningful Pro-D activities within their schools. And what emerged beyond the budget considerations and the data on the many collaborations and mentorships that go on in this district is the need to ensure Pro-D funds that are sitting there unused are used. And that teachers with insufficient funds, new teachers especially, who start out with a very small amount, will be directed to support from school-based and other district sources of support, so that teachers are getting the kind of Pro-D that they need, and those that are not using their funds somehow find some meaningful sources of professional development. So having said that, there also seems to be a need to develop language to guide the use of Pro-D funds, to have clear parameters around what professional development looks like. Should it be used for purchasing Pro-D? Should it be used for, personal interest, so teachers can think about, maybe going into a different area of a subject area or something like that. So that was, so a lot of those things were discussed, but in the result being, we really need to have some clear language. There was some planning for the district Pro-D day with a focus on assessment. So that's in the works. So I won't say anything until that's actually signed and on the dotted line. So the plan for the Indigenous Day of Learning has been acknowledged by the committee as a powerful day of learning, but they feel that because it's a non-instructional day, they have opted out of contributing toward this event, and that's their choice. So that took a little bit of discussion. I want to leave you with something that the Pro-D chair said. She was talking about an anecdote about a land acknowledgement given by a woman with ties to the Songhees and Numbees people at the BCTF zone meeting. And her words really resonated with me because I think they have application to all of us around any table in our district. And she said 3 things. We are together on this land. Let's move forward together. Plan for those who will follow us. And I think that goes in line with what you were talking about, legacy. What legacy do we leave? So, yeah, there's my report.
Thank you, Trustee Gladys. Is there any other business we'd like to discuss this evening? Are there any questions from anyone present on agenda items or anyone in mind?
Question, through the chair. Did I hear correctly that the festival report is available on the district's website, or is that a report that we need to request somewhere?
Nope, it's available.
Thank you.
Any questions online?
No.
Any further questions? Seeing none, may I call for a motion to adjourn? Trustee Hooper.
Hey, I gotta make the 9:05.